Good day, folks, and welcome back to the channel. As you saw from the clip at the start of this video, it's been a wild and woolly week of weather here in Saskatchewan. We had a big blizzard Monday night into Tuesday, and we got a big dump of snow last night as well. So it's been a lot of digging out. But right now it's only about -12. And we're supposed to get a little bit more snow next week. However, we're going to see some temperatures above freezing. So seems like we might have a little bit of a mild week ahead of us. So thank God for that. Now, I don't usually have any special guests on this channel, but I thought I'd make an exception today because with the snow and temperatures that were into the -30s, I thought I got to do something a little different. So because of that, I brought on a special guest, Mr. Jack Daniels, and he is going to be helping me through this video today. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Now, with Harley-Davidson coming up with the 2022 models and the changes that they've done, the little changes on the Fat Boy, Lowrider, ST, things like that, it started getting me thinking about, a lot of these changes. And one of them was with the Sportster S. And my question was that, what exactly makes the Sportster S actually a Sportster? Because to me, and this is just my opinion, it isn't a Sportster at all. There's nothing about that bike to me that would make it a Sportster. I mean, if you go on Harley's website, they actually have it listed as a sport bike, and it's the only sport bike they have listed, whereas they have the other Sportsters in the cruisers. So I don't see that with any other models. You don't have a Road King that's a cruiser, and then the Road King Special is a touring model. It doesn't make too much sense to me, really. And I mean, all you have to do is look at all the differences. And when I started comparing them, to the Sportster 48, which has the 1200 engine, which I figured is about as close as you're going to get to the Sportster S. And when you start looking at the differences, the Sportster S is just a completely different bike altogether. Now, when you look at the differences in these two bikes, I mean, if you look at the dimensions, everything's completely different, other than basically the rake is about the same, but everything is different right down to the weight. It's 50 pounds lighter, I believe, the Sportster S, right down to the frame. The frame on a regular Sportster is your usual frame. The engine bolts right into it, whereas you have the engine is a stressed member of the frame in the Sportster S. In other words, that's going to help it be more rigid. It's going to reduce weight. It's a completely different design. And while we're talking about the engine, let's talk about that. You've got the Sportster that has basically had an air-cooled Evolution engine for how many years, since the 80s? And then you have the Sportster S, which is completely different. 1250 Revolution Max, liquid-cooled engine, a 1250, so it's bigger than the biggest engine that the Sportsters had before, which was the 1200 cc. The only thing the same about those engines is that they're fuel injected. That's it. It's a completely different setup. You can look at the performance as well. And, I have the numbers here. You're looking at 70 foot-pounds of torque in the 48, the Sportster 48, and you've got 93 in the Sportster S. You've got only 66 horsepower on the 48 and 121 on the Sportster S. Like it's damn near doubling it. So there's really no comparison there whatsoever. But everything is just either different or, quite frankly, better on the Sportster S, right down to fuel economy and brakes. So there's just really no comparison there. Now let's talk about like the overall design and looks of this bike. These two bikes, and I'm comparing it to the Sportster 48 in general, these two bikes look nothing alike. Now looking at those two pictures, anybody who didn't know a whole lot about motorcycles or Harley Davidsons would look at those two bikes and would not think they are from the same family at all. Similar. But if you want to look at something that's, you know, more from the modern lineup, you can look at, say, the Fat Bob. I think that the Sportster S takes more from the Fat Bob than it does the Sportster. I mean, if you look at the wheels and the exhaust, I think it takes a little bit away from that. So it ends up begging the question, why is this a Sportster? How is this a Sportster? And your guess is as good as mine, but my guess would be that the air-cooled Evolution motor is not long for this world. It is probably on its way out, and I honestly don't think that Harley wants to end a line like the Sportster, which has been around from, what, the 50s? I don't think they want to end that line, and they want to continue on. I think they're using the name purely for marketing reasons. I don't see this as a Sportster at all. I think it's a completely different model. I think they should have probably called it a different model. They could have called it anything. They could have called it the Street Rod. They could have called it the Street Fighter. They could have called it anything, because calling that bike a Sportster, to me, makes about as much sense as calling the Pan America the new Street Bob. You know, it's just like, oh, looks completely different. It's completely differently designed, different performance. It's a completely different bike, but it's a Street Bob. Well, why is it a Street Bob? Oh, no, because we called it that. And that's basically it. There's no comparisons to any Sportsters, in my opinion. It's not a Sportster, and to try and, I don't know if they're trying to fool people or they're just doing it for marketing and trying to make money off the name. But to me, that is not a Sportster whatsoever. It's a completely different bike and a different model. And what Mr. Jochen Zeitz, the CEO of Harley, said at their premiere that they came out with, I think he said there's another chapter of the Sportster yet to come out this year. So I don't know, are they going to have an electric Sportster now? Who knows? But it's not a Sportster, sorry. Not in my opinion, anyway. Now, before I go, I just want to make this point perfectly clear as well. I am not against this motorcycle. There, to me, is nothing wrong with this motorcycle other than the exhaust, which I think is absolutely hideous. Other than that, I don't think there's anything wrong with this bike other than the exhaust and the name. It looks like it's a fine bike. I'm sure it performs quite well, and I have no problem with Harley, going towards more performance and better technology. No problem with the actual bike itself. The issue for me is the fact that Harley is trying to pass it off as something it's not. But that being said, I think that's it for the video this week. So from myself and Mr. Daniels, hope you folks have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you later.